My name is Ryan Pervola. I'm a lighting designer, programmer, render artist, laser programmer, rigger, and stagehand.
How did you get started with lighting design?
I've been involved in theater and live entertainment since I was in 4th grade, doing stage crew at my middle school talent show, and I've just been doing it ever since, and lighting kind of just became the thing I got really, really good at and enjoyed, and I've just been doing it ever since high school, college, and beyond.
Did you go to college for lighting?
I did. I went to Anne Arundel Community College, got my associate's degree in theater, transferred to Towson University, got my theater major, Bachelor of Science in Fine Arts.
How did you find xlaser?
xlaser actually reached out to me. I was on Facebook wanting to learn how to get involved with lasers, and Adam reached out to me and said, hey, you're nearby Merriweather, which is one of the venues I work at. He said, why don't you come on by and check out what we have? And came in the demo room and showed me everything, and I was immediately hooked.
What was your opinion on lasers before you started working with xlaser?
Intimidating. I had no idea how they were controlled. I had no idea how they were programmed. I had no idea how to even start. I had been setting up lasers at multiple load-ins for shows that I was working on as a stagehand, but I never understood the process of programming it. And I learned about it, and I was like, you need to have a separate program like Pangolian or whatever to use, and you need to basically learn a whole nother programming language to do it. And then Adam called me in, and he's like, you don't even do any of that. And he showed me how to do with the Mercury system. And ever since, it's like a no-brainer to do it that way.
Awesome. How are lasers distinctive as lighting fixtures?
The best way I can describe it is if your light show is like a really bougie, fancy cake, and like flame effects or smoke or CO2 is like the cherry on top. Lasers are like the sprinkle. They add like just an extra layer of color and depth and personality and atmosphere on stage that you don't typically get from a lot of other types of elements on stage. What
are some feedback you've received either from clients or people in the audience or friends of yours who've seen your shows and seen the lasers?
The drummer from Guar, his name's Brad, but the slave name is Brad, but his the Jizmak Dagusha saw footage of the show we did for the Guar drive-in show we did during COVID, and he couldn't get. It was the first time they had used lasers on one of their shows, and he was like, "Oh man, it's awesome! It's like Pink Floyd, but with blood." So, but I get compliments on. Like everything looks good, everything's very flashy, everything's very bright and colorful, because I tend to like to have everybody fairly well lit on stage. I like to have everybody fairly accentuated, I guess would be the term. I like using a lot of front uplight for wash instead of just direct down front light to just kind of add a lot of good shadow and complement. So, but I always try to go simple but eccentric. I don't know if that's the right word.
How much creative control do you get with lasers? Like, do you have to work with the client ahead of time? They kind of tell you what they want, or do you kind of just go?
Depends on the artist. If I was working, like for Guar, for example, they were just like, just tell us where you're putting it so that we're out of its way. Otherwise, they gave me complete free reign to do whatever I wanted. Some other acts, for example, another band I worked for, Ice Nine Kills, they tend to be, their singer Spencer tends to be very hands-on in all elements of the production. So if I were to present him with lasers, he would probably more than likely go, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. It tends to vary to artist to artist. Some artists like being very hands-off and going, we trust you, make us look good. Some artists are very much, will sit next to you and go, let's try that, let's try that, let's try that. It just kind of depends.
Do you have a preference?
No. I don't have a preference. I think it's a lot less to do it if the artist is just like, do whatever you want. But if you have a complicated show with a lot of blocking, you gotta have to have some practice and run-throughs, and you gotta be able to change things on the fly. So I don't really have a preference. It's as long as if the artist knows what they want, it makes it easier, as opposed to having an artist who wants control over their show that doesn't know what they want and don't know how to verbalize what they want.
Right.
What I try to always do is I will contact the artist early on, like a month or two in advance, and be like, if you have a set list, send it to me, and if you have a plot, send it to me. and then I have capture at home, and I just do full capture software. And the beautiful thing about xlaser is that you can use the realizer software, and you can actually show what the lasers will look like in real time in conjunction with the lighting rig. So I can be like, this is what this looks like. And they can go change that, change that, change that. Like Ice Nine Kills opened for Metallica earlier this year in Vegas, and I pre-programmed the whole show before I sent it out, and I sent them 2 or 3 clips of songs that were like sample songs, and I showed them, and they gave me feedback going, let's change this, tweak that a little bit, but otherwise it looks good. So I try to get as far ahead of it as I can, so that I don't, when I get to the site and I get to the actual event itself, they're like, oh, we don't like any of this, you got to change it.
Right.
So I try to get as far out ahead of everything as I possibly can.
Great. What surprised you about lasers, if anything?
How easy they can actually be once you figure out how to speak the language of it. And just how all it takes is like 1 or 2 lasers that just change a show from being just like a bunch of lights to just like this whole another beast of just a show. And just it's hard to explain, but lasers can take a show from this level to just so far up the next level, especially if they're done right and they look good and they blend well with the lighting.
What should other LDs who may not have used lasers yet know about starting with lasers?
It's going to sound like a promotional plug. If you've never done lasers before, you want to learn, the best thing to do is actually just to try the Mercury stuff out, because one of the best things about Mercury is that you don't need to learn another language. I've never done lasers before, and then once Adam showed me how everything in like MA2 worked, it was an immediate click on, and I was able to do lighting effects and fading effects and stop effects and all this complicated programming I would do for lighting, but incorporate it into lasers, which you normally don't do. So programming a laser unit and laser effects the same way you would program a lighting effect with the lighting engine that you have and the effect engine, it's like an entirely different gateway of stuff that you can do.
What has that been like using Mercury compared to?
It's out of the box. It's easy. It's you would think it's complicated. You would think it's incredibly like this daunting task. We got this laser unit. We got to figure out how to do it. We got to set it. We got to figure out how to zone it. And it's just like you turn it on, you unlock it, and then you pull it up in the console, and it's like using any other lighting fixture. You don't have to do anything extra outside of the normal safety stuff you have to do. Like the only thing you have to do with it is you have to zone it in the console. Other than that, it's just like I'll program and create a group in my effects right alongside the rest of my fixture groups when I'm programming, and it does not look any different. So that instead of it being like some programmers that will run their stuff through MA2 on other laser software, it's like they have to have an entirely different macro page for everything. You don't have to do that with Mercury. It's just you have everything there right alongside your lights, and you don't have to disrupt your programming flow of how you're doing it.
Yeah, I think from like a workflow perspective too, like from your experience, has that saved you, time and energy?
Absolutely.
In terms of like getting your show ready to.
It's saved me time, and then it's been able for me to become an even better programmer, because there's things that I learned how to do with the lasers that I didn't know I could do before with lights, and went back and reincorporated it. Doing lighting is it's like playing a musical instrument, and people always say, oh, I got to use this console, I got to use this console, this is the best console. And it's like, really, whatever you're able to get from brain to reality, the easiest way is the best way to do it. And not being able to have additional stuff to incorporate alongside with it makes it so much easier. It's like playing guitar and then having effect pedals that amplify everything out instead of just playing it straight into your amp.
That's a great term for it, amplify, like as in lasers can amplify like a show, take it to another level.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts, and speaking about our unit specifically, thoughts on color mixing or matching with your other rig?
The colors look great. One of my favorite things about what Mercury does, and I haven't seen other fixtures do it, is the ability to color map in like 3 or 4 different ways. One of my favorites is you can actually zone an entire room where one half of this room is blue and this half is green, and when your lasers switch out, they stay mapped to the color you have to the room. and you can double it, and then you can triple it, and you just have all these different unique color combinations that I haven't really seen with other laser controllers, because I've seen a lot of laser shows that look amazing, but a lot of the times, a lot of them look kind of the same, only because the software they use is somewhat, I guess, limited to how a lighting designer normally talks to his fixtures. You don't have that problem with MA2. So, for example, I can do, because there's multi-instance parts on a Mercury unit, I can do cues that flow without any like transition. So I can do a nice wave back and forth look, and then I can have in black a look ready to go where I can hit a swap button and it just strobes. I can have laser strobes in a completely different look, color, function, everything, let go, and it goes back to normal. And you can't really do that too much with like other laser software. I mean, you can, but you've got to really know how to program it. Whereas like with this, if you already know how to do it with lighting fixtures and MA2, you're set. It's the exact same process. So you can do all of the complicated movement black, the complicated color swaps, all the different thousands of different things you can do with any console's effect engine, but then you can do it with lasers. And it just turns lasers from just being like just straight lines that go back and forth and add accentuate to, they can have their own personality on stage, and they can do their own unique thing similar to a lighting fixture. It turns a laser unit into a lighting fixture that does more and then some.
What are your thoughts on integrating, and you kind of touched on this, integrating lasers into your rig?
I love it. It just makes it easier.
Yeah.
I don't need to have a front of house setup where I've got console, laptop for video, laptop for Pangolian, laptop to run additional MIDI controllers and all of this extra stuff. Having everything be in one spot to control.
Yeah. And it's already what you're used to.
It's already what I'm used to. I don't need to learn a new language completely. I don't need to like go from, okay, I'm done lighting, I need to go into laser mode now. I need to go,
yeah, right.
go over here. Like, everything just works.
Thoughts on zoning?
When I first learned zoning, it seemed a little daunting and a little intimidating because it was an entirely new process I had to learn, but it's basically not really any different than doing projection mapping. You're just picking your throw distance where it's going to go and just lock it in. It's always important to make sure that you talk to your artists where you're putting your lasers, where they're going to throw at, but Mercury systems are really, really easy to zone, just like compared to like I think other lasers.
About how long does it take you to zone? Estimate?
10 minutes once I figure out where I'm putting everything.
Yeah.
Probably faster than that, typically, depending on how many units, but like that's usually like the first thing I do before I do anything else.
What are lasers better at than other fixtures?
People get Sharpies for like their really sharp beam looks that you can do.
Right.
Lasers are like the next step above a beam. They can make things trip, but the biggest that a trip is in, like they can make the stage look like ethereal, but the biggest thing that they can do is they can take a stage look and they can make it go from looking like a stage with lights to like this living, breathing organism on stage with all these different elements happening at once. So it can make you forget that you're in a concert venue watching a show and you're in the existence of the stage space.
What limitations do lasers have?
They can only do so much. Lighting has multiple purposes. You use lights to light up the band, you use lights to highlight and accentuate beats of the music. You can have lights be beams, you can have lights be strobes, you can have lights be work lights. Lasers you can only really use as lasers. You can only use them for laser effects, but with like the Mercury system, those laser effects can be like anything, really, but lasers are only limited to that you can only use them as a laser. You can't use a laser to light up like you would a wash spot.
What are your thoughts on the physical aspects of xlaser units? So like the back panel, the build quality?
They're high quality. They're heavy duty, but they're not like big bulky like old Verilight units kind of things. They're really simple. You got a plug, you got your key, you got your power, and then you got your DMX pass through. That's all. It's got everything that you just need for it to work. Mercury Lights opens up a doorway of being able to do things with lasers and programming effects with lasers that normally you wouldn't be able to do with other effects, with other controller options. Being able to program lasers with lighting effects and lighting cues the same way you could integrate everything else, and then integrate those lasers in your time code and just integrate it with your show, just like as easy as adding another lighting fixture in your patch is just, it's unbelievable. And just being able to use a console's effect engine to do things with lasers that you can only do with lighting creates an entirely new depth to the field of what lasers can do for a show. And Mercury makes it super, super, super easy to it, and it's like cheating. Like you could be a really, really, really crappy lighting designer and only know the basics of how to do like basic lighting effects. But once you figure out how to, you know, operate a Mercury unit and you program lasers like you would basic lighting effects, then you'll get booked anywhere once you demonstrate it.
What's your workflow like?
I typically will either have a separate view page for my lasers, or I'll have a layout page for my lasers where I just can easily just grab everything. I tend to change my workflow a lot. It's constantly changing and evolving. So I'll typically do like a view page per fixture, and then I'll do like a quick grab page where I'll have all my fixture groups, colors and everything, like a very basic setup. I'll have the lasers be on that as well. So being able to have like a quick go page with my laser units ready to go alongside everything else makes it very, very easy. So it's usually not too much different than any other fixtures that I have. But if it's like a show where there's like 6 or 7 lasers, like I'm programming one at home right now just to keep up on my skills.
Great.
I've got like 7 lasers, and I have just a separate page for lasers so that I program my lighting, and then I program the lasers, and then when I go to time code everything, I just pull the faders up and they just run like concurrently with each other.
Are there any other thoughts that we haven't touched on that you want to impart on people, or do we kind of hit a lot of stuff? But anything else, lasting thoughts?
Tours should be using these guys more. Tours should be using more Mercury units. That sounds terrible, and it sounds like, you know, shilling, but it's, you know, they've got amazing customer service. I used a 20-watt laser on the Guar drive-in show a couple years ago. We got down to the site in Richmond, and we couldn't get it to work properly right away. And I called Adam for a question, and he was about to literally drive himself 4 o'clock in the morning from here in Maryland to Richmond just to make sure I get the damn thing powered on. You can't beat that. I call these guys, I call their customer service and the support all the time for questions, and I get an answer like almost immediately, and they'll give me all the resources I need to make it happen, on top of having the unfair advantage of, you know, being able to use the Mercury system the way I can use it. It's my dogs. That's my other dog. My girlfriend's dog. What do you think? You got anything?
Anything for the people?
You can contact me on my Instagram. Yeah, I know. I'm telling them. Let me tell them. You can contact me on Instagram, Ryan Pervola _lighting. I do a lot of freelance work mostly. I'm also a union stagehand and rigger. Right now I'm taking work for, if you need a show programmed and time coded with renders for a tour to get sent out, you can call me. I got a full running render rig at home. And I have these two that kind of just...
Your assistants.
They kind of just keep the house going while I'm busy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.